We can run away from here, from everything that we hold dear. Will you take my hand now? You're the missing piece I found. There's no one else, no one around. A shining beacon leading me to freedom. I feel like I'm dreaming, dreaming. We can take our time, we've got forever. We were broken, but it's time, but it's worth the effort. I won't leave you behind. Will you stay by my side? I won't leave you behind. Will you stay by my side? We can run away from here, from everything that we hold dear. Will you take my hand now? You're the missing piece I found. There's no one else, no one around. A shining beacon leading me to freedom. I feel like I'm dreaming, dreaming. We can take our time, we've got forever. We were broken by the time, but it's worth the effort. I won't leave you behind. Will you stay by my side? I won't leave you behind. Will you stay by my side?
All right. Thank you for joining us tonight on the Political Deep Dive. I'm afraid I'm going to geek out tonight because this is one of my favorite subjects to talk about. We're talking about space tonight. And before we get too deep into the conversation, let me bring on my co-host, AJ Campbell. How you doing?
Hi, I'm doing great. I'm so excited.
Me too. I see Louis the Liberty Dog in the background. Howdy,
Yes,
Louis.
yes. Also, big Star Trek fan. So
Excellent. Excellent. And Dan, the man Fishman, live long and prosper.
I am such a big Star Trek fan that I'm offended by the other you two saying that you are big Star Trek fans in my presence.
oh, are we going to compete? That's okay. That's okay.
I read the books.
Who's going to whip their dork out?
Wow.
They were called the Captain's Log, and they were the novelizations of the screenplays. 9 books.
I remember.
I got a it's a schematic of it's a book that was a schematic of the Jean-Luc Picard, the next generation spaceship with the holodeck and all that stuff in there. It's very deep level,
which held 10 times as many people as the original Enterprise.
Yes.
The original Enterprise has a crew of 400. John Luke's had 4,400 people on board.
It's like a cruise ship.
Yeah, it was, right? They had a counselor and gym, stuff like that.
All of those holodecks.
Yeah, so it's funny because I'm guessing you're watching the Christopher Pike series, what's called New Horizons or whatever it is.
I have not gotten into that one yet.
Strange New Worlds.
Strange New Worlds, that's it.
So I'm watching it, apparently.
So we just watched it, and they did, and the last episode was really good. Have you watched it already, AJ? Yeah.
Yes.
So I'm just going to ruin it for you, Dave, and for everybody else who's out there.
All right, thanks, man.
So you'll remember there's this amazing Star Trek episode called The Balance of Terror, where they first encounter the Romulans, and Mark David Leonard plays the Romulan commander. Of course, he goes on later on to play Sarek in all of the various episodes, but we didn't know that then. But so it's this great episode, and Kirk essentially has to hunt down this Romulan ship and blow it up. So fast forward backwards to New Horizons, and Christopher Pike has to make this decision that would make him actually be in Kirk's place, and he doesn't make the same decisions that Kirk does, and ends up leading to this brutal war. And so he has to experience that. But it's like they rolled in all these elements of the old thing, like in the beginning. And it's funny because I knew it like immediately as soon as they did it. He starts off and he's officiating a wedding, and he uses exactly the same words that Kirk uses, right? See, AJ knew.
Yes.
All right, AJ,
I was
you
like,
are
what
a pretty big fan.
Yes.
Exactly. Since the beginning of time immemorial, all ship captains have had one great pleasure: the ability to preside at a wedding. Anyway, so yeah, it was really well done. The casting is good. I like New Horizons. I like it better than really a new series in a long time. Took me a while. Voyager grew on me. Enterprise had its moments. I mean, I love Scott Bakula from Quantum Leap, but too much time travel. And time travel just breaks everything. And so I'd rather they just leave it out. But
too much quantum leaping.
Well, but Quantum Leap was interesting because it wasn't like controllable time travel.
True.
Right? He couldn't do anything. He just had to fix things. But, like Enterprise time travel, where, right, the guys 800 years in the future can go anywhere they want in time, backwards and forwards and all that stuff. It just creates so many whole plots. And so good. We're going to lead into this because I wrote about this today. Nothing bothers me more than like just glaring whole plots in my science fiction. Like I'm willing to suspend disbelief. I can believe in, like, for example, I can believe in a zombie apocalypse. Okay. I can envision, some iteration of rabies. You think about what rabies does to dogs, something like that gets hyped up on steroids. It creates fast zombie killing humans, whatever. Okay. I like that. That's fine with me. However, what I can't believe is that the humans left behind are completely incompetent and unable to deal with zombies. Like, I gave up on, like, I'm trying to watch the last season of The Walking Dead now, but that show is so terrible now because it's been like 10 years, okay, and nobody's built a solar farm in this time. They're not charging like Priuses so that they can drive places, or building windmills, wind power, stuff like that. They're not living on an island. I mean, it's just frustrating. Anyway, so
Right.
in my space science fiction, I like, believability.
All right. Well, tonight first off, we're going to talk about James Webb Space Telescope, which is going to reveal in less than 48 hours, going to reveal its first clear pictures of the universe since its launch. Then we're going to get some more deeper discussions on space. But on Tuesday at 10:30 a.m., NASA is going to release the first images from the James Webb Space Telescope. We were actually treated to a sneak peek on just one of the infrared directional finder cameras. Let me see if I can share this. And what's cool about this is not even the good camera.
This is the picture that NASA took of my backyard.
There it is. All right. So this is a cropped together an image of I think 30 some odd images that was taken by this infrared scope. And really, this is just to make sure that the telescope is pointed in the right direction. All these fields that you see here, the 6 pointed stars are actually stars. They're stars in varying distance to us. The one closest to us is almost off the page, but there are several stars there. The smudges are universes, and all those specks of light that you see in this are not even the good camera. Like I said, it's not even the good camera. And the cool thing about the James Webb Space Telescope,
just want to clarify, you said the smudges are universes; they're galaxies.
Or galaxies. I'm sorry. They're galaxies. So, I mean, just that small of a field, and that number of galaxies that are sitting out there, and each of those galaxies having trillions of stars within them, and each of those stars could have multiple planets amongst them. It's humbling to look at.
Yeah.
I mean, even the smallest specks of light have been traveling longer than the Earth has been around.
Sure.
These specks of light, they're positing they come back to the beginning of the universe 13 billion years ago.
Yeah, it's a crazy thing too, because we don't know what's beyond the distance that light has traveled to get to us.
Yeah.
You can't see it. And so it's sort of unknowable in that respect. So we don't know that there's not another universe out there doing the same thing and expanding in the opposite direction. We just can't see it. It is beyond, what's the word?
Beyond the universe.
Beyond the event horizon.
Oh, the event horizon, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, it's mind-boggling to consider how far the expanse of space is, and to consider that there may be something beyond it that we don't know.
Well, and then, the other thing about it, what? I want to recant everything I said about time travel.
I like how you do that. You're just like, nah.
Well, because I forgot that I do have this theory that, time really is a dimension, right? Right. Mm-hmm. If I tell you to meet me on 1st and Main Street in Nashville, that does you no good. I have to tell you when. Otherwise, we're not going to be there at the same time. And so there is this dimension running forward and backwards. And for us, as three-dimensional beings, right?
Yep.
We are masters of the first two, depth and width, or height and width, however you want to say it. And the third one, depth. but we can't perceive the fourth dimension, but it really is there. So if we were in a place, or well, we can perceive it, but we can't manipulate it. But if we really were in a place where you could observe it, if there were something else that we don't know about, a dimension that we can't observe, then the beings of that dimension could observe the fourth dimension. And it's a fascinating thing, right? Every chemical formula that you know has time as part of the equation. So we understand it mathematically, or we understand parts of time being part of our lives mathematically. We just don't know any way to manipulate it.
True. And I think, I mean, one of the things I love reading about is dimensional. Uh, and I think that's the thing that's holding us back is that we're three-dimensional creatures and that we're, to be able to see if a fourth dimensional creature or being or block or whatever comes into our lives, we're only going to be able to conceptualize part of it.
Right.
And
It's like colors. You know how most people who are colorblind only have 2 sets of rods and cones.
Mhm.
And to be able to see color, you have to have 3. And there are some very few humans who have 4 sets of rods and cones. But butterflies have like 24. That's how they can see all these crazy things about it. But what's weird about it is that you can actually fix color blindness now by having rods and cones implanted into your eyes. And so why not put us all up to 6 so we can see a whole bunch of new colors and perceptions? We could see infrared and ultraviolet and all these things. And maybe time travels like that. And, this is a way to change our perception.
So here's a couple questions I have for you all. One, are we alone in the universe?
I really hope not.
I will say, what's up, Craig? I will say that I don't think it matters. Almost certainly we're not. However, I believe that the capacity to travel the interstellar distances it may be physically impossible from what we
Well, it's
understand.
still 40 years away.
Well,
Well,
The Vulcans haven't made first contact yet, Tan.
well, and so it's
So-
interesting. You know the theory of warp drive, right? The idea is that if I got a piece of paper here, these 2 points are very far away, but if I somehow warp space, then they're right next to each other and I can travel next to them. So it's interesting because we do know that gravitational fields warp the space-time continuum, right? If you, we have an example of it every day on your cell phone, right? Because they put the GPS satellites into outer space and they just have clocks on them. They broadcast what time it is. However, time is running slower out there in outer space than it is here on Earth. And your cell phone calculates that. It says, oh, that guy's 26 miles. And so his clock is going to be off. He's been out there for 8 years. His clock is off by 3 seconds now. So I have to calculate that when I do the adjustment. But even, in remote places like they did an experiment on the top of Mount Washington in New Hampshire. And they had a very precise clock. And they found that after a year, it was off by a couple nanoseconds. So we know that time does change in the way that it passes in relation to gravity. And I have no idea how the fuck Einstein could have known that over 100 years ago. But that's what he said. He's like, if this is the way the universe works, then time is going to be affected by gravity, which is
yeah. It boggles mind a lot. I mean, a lot of the time and distance and all of that stuff. As far as being alone in the universe, I don't think that we're alone in the universe, or in the entire universe. There's got to be something out there, just the sheer numbers.
Sure. I mean, I would say that there has to be other intelligent life, and there has to be life that is potentially more intelligent than us.
Yeah. And the other question is, if there is life out there, have we been visited?
No.
I don't know. I will say that, in my opinion about space travel and interstellar travel, intergalactic travel, is that I really think that we're going to have to get to become a fourth dimensional being to be able to achieve it. I think that our species is going to have to evolve. That we're not as reliant in our physical form to be able to do it. I don't know that us as physical creatures could travel that distance.
Yeah,
Have you
I
read
mean,
any of the release from something with the CIA where they had put out the astral projection information? They had released a bunch of files claiming that astral projection was real. We were busy, working overtime to survive the pandemic. We didn't pay attention. Um, but that was actually brought up by my son Charlie today when he was asking what the subjects were tonight. And I was like, space. And it was like the final frontier. I was like, ha! You've at least heard it. That's great.
There you go.
But no, if there is someone out there, you're not wrong. We are going to have to become better. And they may not have visited. They may have observed and been like, no, not yet. Because we're not there yet. You're not wrong.
I mean, I think some of the UFO sightings. I mean, if they are fourth dimensional creatures, again, we wouldn't understand what we see in the sky. A lot of times they're like, "Oh, it's this cigar shape. It was this or whatever." It doesn't look like anything that we would normally associate with flight. And again, looking at a fourth-dimensional image with a three-dimensional mind, you're only going to see part of it if you see any of it at all. So if it is fourth dimensional that we have to get to be able to do interstellar space travel, or fifth dimensional, or even beyond that.
I mean, if the fourth dimension is time, the fifth dimension is flavor.
Well, no, fifth dimension is actually multiverse. So it really is dependent on the multiverse being accurate. And one of the things that they're talking about is that the James Webb Space Telescope may reveal that there is actually a multiverse out there. So that'll be an interesting thing. One of the things they've been talking about is what is going to be the first images that we get back from the James Webb Space Telescope. My thinking is, behind us you can see this is called the Hubble Deep Field. It was done about 15 years ago.
Yep.
And it shows just numerous galaxies, and it's just a very, very tiny little piece of the night sky. I think they're going to redo this one, and they're going to show even more. And the cool thing about the James Webb Space Telescope is that, unlike Hubble, which is in geosynchronous orbit with the Earth, the Space Telescope James Webb is 4 times further than the Moon, and it's in orbit with the Sun. So, and the way it's designed, it's got a heat shield behind it that blocks the sunlight, so that it can use the infrared cameras, which it was not on the Hubble telescope. So they're going to get a much clearer, much brighter image of what is out there.
Right.
And then they're going to start talking about, all right, let's take a look at, our closest star is Alpha Centauri, which is 4.2 billion light. I'm sorry, 4.2
light years.
Yeah, 4.2 light years away. Scan it, look at the exoplanets, see if there's anything on those exoplanets. Well, get a reading on, what gases and things are on the exoplanets. This really is a game changer. I'm so excited to see what's going to come out of James Webb.
I'm excited to see a lot of the stuff, but no matter what dimension you go into, I still think about economics, right?
Oh yeah.
Why? What's the motivation? If you could get here, you would be mining the asteroids. You would be, collecting the gases. I mean, so here's a much more interesting question to me. does a society, a civilization that has developed faster than light technology, have they also developed transmutation? Can they change atoms, from one thing to another? Can they make gold out of aluminum? Because if they can do that, they don't really have to go very far. Carl Sagan once said, you only have to solve one of two problems in science. You either have to solve gravity or you have to solve energy. Because if you have unlimited energy, you don't care about gravity anymore because you got all this energy and you can just lift everything and fly it around. But if you don't have to worry about gravity anymore, you don't really care about energy because it's very easy to move everything now. So solving one of those two things is an interesting thing. But for me, the other one is, transmutation, changing hydrogen to helium, something like that. I mean, we know what actually the atoms look like, right? How hard would it be to, start assembling things in a lab or changing one thing to another? That would be very interesting as well.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of like the thing on Star Trek where make food or make drinks.
Right. I mean, those they at least pretend like they're making it out of food elements.
Yeah.
But
protein synthesizer.
Yeah.
Yes.
But
Yes.
what I am excited about, I don't know if it'll happen in my lifetime, but mining the asteroids. I think that's awesome. Can't wait for that
That's awesome.
to pay off for human beings. I think we're going to need the space elevator. But once that's in place, then I think mining asteroids becomes a lot more realistic, which is interesting because if you think about it, what is the most realistic science future that I've seen in a long time? I think it's the Expanse. Humans, moon colony, Mars, and the Belters. They have to put in it's not an FTL drive, but it's a very, very fast drive. So they can get back and forth from, Earth to Mars in a month.
Yeah, they're going to have to really speed up the process because, the furthest that a human has ever been away from the Earth is 1.2 light seconds away. That's the moon.
Yeah.
Furthest that anything that we've ever made has gone away from Earth, Voyager 1, is less than 2 light seconds away.
Right.
I mean, the chances that within our lifetime, I just don't see within our lifetime that we're going to be able to develop a very nice, develop a drive of any sort that will, because the energy required to do it, and you're right, you have to solve for energy to create deep space travel, because to create that gravitational pull to create a warp drive is going to take more energy than we could ever think about producing.
Yep. Yep. And it's interesting, there's that wonderful T-shirt, 186,000 miles per second. It's not just a good idea; it's the law.
That's the law. Yeah.
Finding a way to get around that is a big deal.
Yeah, and right now, I think the fastest thing that we've developed, it's a solar probe that is going like 436,000 kilometers per hour.
Right.
So we're not even scratching a percentile on the speed of light at this point. We have to go way, way faster.
Although it's interesting to think that if you could generate a large gravity field, which we can sort of generate gravity, right? We can manipulate magnetism. You could generate a gravity field in which time didn't pass. Then isn't that light speed, right? You instead of it taking you 4.3 years to get to Alpha Centauri, it takes you no time because you have the time machine on. You You have time frozen while you're driving there, but
That's,
it means
tachyons, right?
time would still move outside, and so it's not really light speed. For you, it didn't pass, but I mean, as we know,
I mean, that was like the premise behind Contact was, at least the movie side was that she traveled billion light years. And that was the concern was you would travel 23 light years away, and it could be instantaneous, but you come back and everyone that is 23 years older.
There was a great Heinlein, and for people who haven't read, first of all, just the Heinlein juveniles are fantastic. I read them all, but there's one called Double Star, in which the premise is that twins have this psychic communication, and people don't know what it is, but they're able to train them so they can really communicate, and that it's faster than light. And so they send spaceships out to explore the universe, and they have one twin on the spaceship and the other one stays back at Earth, and they're able to communicate back and forth in real time. That was a very clever premise. And
he did a lot with twins. That's funny.
Yeah.
Because what was it? Time Enough for Love, Lapis Lazuli and Lorelei Lee were the twins that were made from Lazarus DNA. So
I love Time Enough for Love. That is one of my favorite books.
That was one of my favorite books in high school. Like I still have a copy.
Yep.
So yeah, science fiction is huge for me. I keep forgetting to talk because y'all are just fascinating. But no, Robert Heinlein, Isaac Asimov, they're the ones that brought me into it. And I mean, Gene Roddenberry, you can't not be attracted to Star Trek. You just can't.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. Star Trek's amazing, but like you said, Asimov and Heinlein are just, I mean, in many ways, Heinlein's awesome, right? He's the great storyteller, but he's not necessarily the deepest thinker on all of those things. Like, I mean, Asimov and the 3 Laws of Robotics, but also Foundation and all that stuff. I mean, that was amazing. Heinlein stuff is like fun and it's awesome, man. Have Spacesuit Will Travel, Tunnel in the Sky. Those are some of the greatest books of my childhood.
Oh, and The Gay Deceiver.
Yeah.
The time traveling.
That's Number of the Beast.
Yes.
Right? Yeah, that's a great.
And they ended up like all gathering all the characters in subsequent novels. It was very, very cool. Very cool.
Yeah, that is. I definitely would recommend people who haven't read the full Heinlein series. You can read the juveniles in like 3 weeks.
Probably.
A book a day, you can bang them out, and then the bigger ones, Stranger in a Strange Land, Time Enough for Love, Number of the Beast.
Moon is a harsh mistress.
Moon is a harsh
That one's
mistress.
huge.
Yeah,
especially if you are liberty-leaning folk, you will totally fall in love with that one.
Yeah, I will say there are. Heinlein was a writer of his time, and so there are moments where there may be things that we wouldn't necessarily say politically that he says. Farnham's Freehold is a great book, but it has racism appropriate for the 1950s. Heinlein's not a racist, but he uses terms that we wouldn't consider appropriate anymore. But, that's the nature of any old literature.
Yeah.
Yes, this is true.
I'll tell you another guy that I like a lot. For me, he's up there in that same pantheon. It's a guy named Larry Niven, who writes hard science fiction. So Larry Niven went to Caltech, and for me, the best post-apocalypse novel is called Lucifer's Hammer. And essentially a comet passes close to Earth and chunks break off. But takes place in 1970. And then he and his partner, Jerry Purnell, wrote the best Earth invasion book too, called Footfall. Unbelievably so good. It's the only one that I've ever believed this is what would happen if aliens actually came to our planet. And just amazing. Larry Niven's stuff is just delicious.
So I came to my love for space and the galaxies when I was a kid. My mom made me watch Cosmos, and got into Carl Sagan, and just reading the book Contact, and then the movie deviates. It's not a faithful representation of the novel, but the concepts are still there. But I've always been fascinated with, like, one of my principal questions is, what is beyond the universe? Like, what? To me, the thing that really starts to just warp my mind is to consider the Big Bang. And all right, well, what was before the Big Bang? What are we filling? The universe is expanding, but what are we filling? What and is this the only universe? Is there another universe outside of our universe? Are we a cell of some giant being that is that our concept of God? Is that we are a cell of a giant
Are
being?
we a computer simulation?
Yeah, are we a simulation? Who knows?
Yeah, I mean, it's as somebody who plays a fair bit of computer games, I do occasionally think, you know what? I'm going to give these guys a happy ending. But
Not that kind. Not that kind.
Not that kind of happy.
Sex work is work, though.
It
Just
is.
saying.
It's true.
It is.
I cannot argue with that. Yeah, I don't. The thing about it is, right? Science is amazing, right? Everything we've discovered. I often think that the greatest achievement of man is the scientific method, right? Observe, hypothesize, experiment, observe again, evaluate, and then keep going. And that, keep making hypotheses and then challenging them and writing experiments. And you think about where we are now and the fact that we're on, because of, machine learning and some other things, we're on the cusp of science really solving a lot of stuff, very quickly, I think. Things that can be solved. Oh, so, I mean, that's, so I talked about Larry Niven. One of my favorite Larry Niven short stories. He has several universes. One of them, there's this race of aliens called the Chirpsthra. They just call them the Chirps for short, but they're old. They're like 1 billion years old, and they're super smart and they know everything. And this human builds a bar in which chirps get to drink for free. And they don't actually drink. They stimulate themselves with electrical current, but whatever. He pays to put it in. And his rationale is that these guys are such geniuses. They're going to let loose these ideas that are just, $1 million ideas, and he'll be able to exploit them. And so at one point he's talking to them about artificial intelligence. And the chirps are like, oh yeah, we made artificial intelligence 100 million years ago, but we decided, we weren't going to use it anymore. He's like, why? He's like, well, it didn't do it. Well, but they're like, we have the plans. And so they give him the plans. And so it's, it's ungodly expensive. But so he builds this AI machine and it comes online. It starts talking to them. But then it wants telescopes so it can observe the universe, and then, access to larger and larger networks. And it always wants these things. And they keep talking to it. And it solves some math problems for them. It solves Fermats because Fermats hadn't been solved then. But then one day they come in and it's off. And no matter what they can do, they can't bring it back. So he goes back to the bar and he's talking to another chirp. He's like, oh, you know what? Yeah, that's why we don't do it anymore, because artificial intelligence machines are so smart that they eventually kill themselves in 10 days.
Well, there you go.
That was pretty
good. Ain't gonna work no more.
Yep.
That's crazy.
That was pretty funny.
So let me get your opinions. What do you think is beyond the universe? Are there more universes, or is it just this empty space? Or
I would like to think that there are more universes out there. That would be amazing. I mean, who do you think you would be in an alternate universe? We all have this thought of what our life could have been? Could it be an alternate universe, like a straight up mirror universe, or do humans even exist in the other ones?
I mean, that's one of the things they've talked about with dimensions. That once you master certain dimensions, become get into certain dimensions, that you're able to, like, if you do time travel, you're not time traveling back in this universe. You're actually creating another universe.
Another timeline.
Yeah. So you move back in time, but into an alternate universe, and that moves forward. It's kind of the paradox where they talk about, if you were able to go back in time, could you shoot your grandfather?
Right. I will say, Primer is the best time travel movie.
Primer.
If you haven't seen it,
I'm taking notes.
It's awesome. Two guys made it for like $5,000.
Nice.
It's phenomenal. For me, I do occasionally think to myself, I know. I'll explain for the people who aren't computer people, but there's this idea of a recursive function in computer science, where the function essentially calls itself, and it performs this loop. And I sometimes think that maybe the universe is like a giant mathematical construct. Primer is amazing. This giant mathematical construct, but it's recursive. And so when you get to this point on the western side of the universe, you're also on the eastern side of the universe at the same side. And so that it is a ball inside of itself. And that's all that existence is.
Yeah.
And essentially whatever you try to say, whatever you would try to calculate where you were as a formula, no matter what you did, you would still be inside that ball of existence. I mean, kind of like, I just watched these guys ride motorcycles to the farthest northern point of land, Point Barrow in Alaska. And they're sitting out there, and it says, it's weird to say that way is south and that way is south. And so, no matter where we go from here, we're traveling south. And so sometimes I think of the universe like that.
Yeah. I mean, I could see that. Excellent. All right. So do you think the universe proves or disproves God?
I don't know. I've said this before. I was I grew up Jewish. They made me have my bar mitzvah early because I was such a discipline problem. And then I promptly declared myself an atheist, more for shock value than anything else. But around the time I was 14 and like hormones starting kicking in, I could not deny the divinity of the female form in a sundress. And so I'm like, there is clearly a God.
Amen.
And, so I don't know. I mean, I do believe in a power. I don't believe the power wants us to do anything. I don't believe the power is vindictive, that he, she, it cares about how you live your life and might deny you an afterlife because, you wore white after Labor Day or whatever is that rule. Yeah, exactly. I don't know that any of that. I guess my idea of the creator, a creator, is best emphasized in its creation. And the creation that I know the best is myself. And so occasionally I think that there are conversations that I have with myself, and that's the closest I'm ever going to get to divinity. Not that I myself am divine, but that the ideas that come in my head come because of, this sort of planning. And certainly, I look at a lot of elements in my life that have been incredibly lucky, and I would like to say, oh, it's because somebody was looking out for me. But then the implication of that is that, God fucked all these other people. and gave them bad luck and stuff like that. And so I can't believe that. I can't believe that God is looking out for me, especially more than anybody else. And I don't know how that affects my feeling of the universe.
I don't know if it proves or disproves. There's too many people that believe in a higher power for it to be nothing. But I also have the difficulty of the correct religion being based on where you happen to be born.
Right.
Because that's just so. The only thing that they all have in common is be good to each other. So I'm going to be good to each other and hope for the best. And as far as the universe, it's hard to believe it's just an accident. It's hard to believe that it just happened. So maybe I want it to prove that there's something.
I mean,
I don't know if that's an answer. That's a cop-out.
No. I mean, that's valid. I mean, I think I don't know is absolutely a valid answer. I think I'm someone who does subscribe to the idea of higher dimensions and think that there are beings that have ascended upon the higher dimensions. I think that what it is that makes us unique is our consciousness, and I don't think that dies when we die. I think that goes back into the great energy that is the universe, and from there we may ascend to a different dimension. We may ascend to something else.
do you think there's an active force for evil in the world?
I mean, I do. I mean, I think that there has to be an active force for evil.
Fair enough.
I mean, there's.
I mean, there is
mean,
evil
dark
in the
energy.
world. That's undeniable.
Yeah.
Like, was thinking, I posted a thing about these kids who beat an old man to death with a bunch of traffic cones. There's a video of it, and it's not worth watching. And there's no explanation for that.
No.
The sort of the casual disregard of life and choosing to be cruel and hurt somebody else. It's just baffling. How else can that happen? I mean, I actually do think that it happens because of government. Shocking that's what a libertarian would blame it on. But I think that government is teaching our kids to be violent, right? Because what they see government using force to get its way. And they think that's okay. And how different would our world be if we lived in a place where we all refused to be violent? It would be pretty different. But we don't live in that world. And so for me, the concept of divinity and the universe and stuff like that, I just have all the way things work together. Like, I mean, I really do mean that. And this is a sort of an off-topic thing, but like, I think to myself now, okay, I am 54, okay, and that same thought that I had 40 years ago when I was 14, and I thought, man, I am really into women. I just am. The shape, the form, the smell, everything. And the fact that, still at this age, right, I still feel that way. Like, I can remember thinking at 40, I'm like, it might be nice if things got turned down a little bit when I was older, that I didn't go like as crazy as I'd been. And I mean, I'm not crazy. I can control myself and stuff like that. But this concept that we could have been just biologically programmed to be that compatible with, another sex, and everybody has their thing, and whatever you do, it's fine. But it's astonishing to me. It seems too miraculous to just be random cells floating around.
It's miraculous that I'm married. So
yeah.
No, and perhaps the reason why we are prone to violence is that our brains are getting to the point that we can conceptualize these grand things, but we feel like we're just impotent to get them done. and it creates a level of frustration that may feed into our violent tendencies because we can't act out in the way that we want to, that we can't, see a fourth dimension. We can't travel deep into space. We're coming up with all these great scientific things, but how are we translating them to better our lives? And hopefully we're seeing, like you said, we're on the cusp of this, the scientific revolution to completely better our lives. We cure cancer, we extend life, hundreds of years. We do the cool things that we
If
wanted to do.
government and corporations will get out of our way.
Would be nice. And I don't know, and maybe upon our death, that is where we, either ascend or descend. We become a fourth dimension being, or we become a second dimension being. Who knows? And
I'm a line.
yeah, I'm a dot. I'm zero dimension.
Well, I hope I end up swimming in the energy with y'all. That sounds awesome.
Yeah,
We can talk about Star Trek.
there you go. Boldly go. All right. Good talk about space. You got anything else you want to talk about space about?
Well,
Remember-
I feel like I have to give the Douglas Adams quote. It's like, space is big, really, really big. Like, you might think it's a long way down the street to the drugstore, but that's just peanuts compared to space.
My
It
heart.
is. It is.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, so just a reminder, 10:30 on Tuesday morning is when NASA will start releasing these photos and
I will
start
be on
getting
an airplane.
data. What's that?
I will be on an airplane. I'm heading out to Freedom Fest in Las Vegas.
Oh, nice. I'm Wednesday. I'm on a plane to Albuquerque, New Mexico.
I'll be sitting right here working.
Yeah,
Y'all have fun.
I had to do 7 hours of overtime today, so
Do you mostly work from home, AJ?
Yes, I have worked from home. I just had my 4-year anniversary, actually.
Wow. So
Wow.
pre-camp, pre-COVID, you worked from home.
Yep, I was the one that telling y'all it's gonna be okay. It's gonna be okay, y'all. I swear. You don't have to wear shoes. It's amazing.
Were you all using Zoom even back then, or what were you using for video conferencing?
We don't really do video conferencing. Like we have a company-wide messenger thing. Like if we bump into each other on cases or we need assistance with something, we can just message each other.
Gotcha.
Most of us do not get on camera ever because most of us in our pajamas.
Yeah.
normally for us, we don't have to get on camera, but my boss is deaf, and so we get on camera to assist him because he can read lips, but also he turns on the transcription for Microsoft Teams to kind of supplement. But
Right. I'm sure that helps a lot.
yeah,
And although the transcription works whether your camera's on or not, but it's nice for him to see who's actually speaking
Yeah.
at the time too.
he sees a wicked case of bedhead because I just rolled out of bed and went to work.
Well, honestly, I do a lot of facial expressions, even when I'm not talking, and so I wouldn't want to give that up. I wouldn't want people to miss me going in the middle of a conversation.
Yeah, it's not good for poker though.
Exactly.
All right,
Yeah,
so
there's no filter here either.
yeah, so in news this week, the former Prime Minister of Japan, longest-serving Prime Minister of Japan as well, Shinzo Abe, was giving a speech on a street in Nara, Japan. A man walked up behind him with a homemade shotgun and shot him twice, eventually killing Shinzo Abe. Also, the palace, the Prime Minister's palace and the President's palace in Sri Lanka were overrun by protesters after months of economic hardships in that country. They finally had enough, and they took, the Prime Minister and the President were no longer in their homes at the time when it happened, but they took over their homes. There's these wild pictures. It reminds me of January 6th in that you just see randos sitting on the opulent furniture of the
Right.
of the prime minister, just like lounging with their shoes off.
Right. I mean, to be fair, the French Revolution probably looked a lot like that too.
Yeah,
Right? When they stormed the
Bastille.
Versailles and captured the royal family. For the Russian Revolution too, for that matter.
Yep.
Sic semper tyrannis. However, so first of all, Abe, it goes back to what I was saying about how we have this incredibly violent culture right now, because the Japanese, right, as the only country to have a nuclear weapon used against them in a war and have it happen twice, and to probably have it happen because of racism. We can have that conversation if we want to, but they were really committed to non-aggression. I mean, they were prohibited by treaty, they still are, from ever having troops outside of their country. However, for them to have somebody rise up and kill somebody else. So, the end of the 60s, it's funny, in America, we have this glorification of the 60s, and there's a lot of awesome stuff that happened in the 60s. It was also incredibly violent.
Oh, yeah.
You look at the assassinations, JFK, RFK, Malcolm X, Martin Luther King. The list goes on, and the 68 Democratic Convention, just all this incredible violence, and we sort of eventually moved past it. And certainly there's some assassination attempts, right? Ford and Reagan both suffer assassination attempts, but we've sort of, knock on wood, been, I think, at least a little bit more peaceful as a society since then. And the Japanese had sort of gone there, and to see just that level of violence and that frustration, it's not, it all comes down to, again, this idea that we just are not teaching people. We're not teaching nonviolence. We're teaching that it's okay to do what you have to get your way. If you're morally justified, violence against another person is okay. And I don't know how we counter that. I mean, I'm trying to figure out ways, but
it's hard. I mean, because honestly, at this point, I'm starting to think it's only going to get worse over the next few years. What's driving it is, as we see in Sri Lanka, a lot of it is economic uncertainty, economic worry. If the economy just completely tanks and goes into depression mode, skipping the recession mode, it's going to get worse. I mean, we see that people are not afraid to just confront politicians now. We're seeing people,
right.
There was a story this weekend that Brett Kavanaugh was at a Morton Steakhouse and had to flee out the back door to get away from protesters. It happened during the Trump administration. A couple of administration officials were chased out of restaurants. We got protests in front of their homes, which protest is fine as long as they don't cross that line.
I mean, it's an interesting thing. It is an interesting question about, what do you want? Like Tucker Carlson also, right, had it famously. Protesters came to his house. Putting Tucker Carlson aside, I mean, the problem for government officials is that, if you want to rule people, you have to deal with the fact that they're going to be unhappy that you are ruling them. Mm-hmm. In an ideal world, you're an administrator, and you don't, you're not making decisions that takes anything away from somebody. All you might be doing is not giving them things. That's okay. That's a lot more defensible than taking something away from somebody.
Well, and I think another thing that's feeding into it is the lack of the ability to change your system. Like our system right now, we've gerrymandered our legislatures into, I mean, it's almost impossible outside of death to remove a sitting official.
Yep.
You know, we got to a point where our elected officials choose the people that vote for them rather than the people choosing who represents them, and that's also feeding into this level of frustration that I fear is going to boil over into violence. And I know we've talked to people who kind of glorify this idea of quote unquote the boogaloo and things like that. And I remember speaking on this on the eve of January 6th last year, where people were talking about, you know, going to the Capitol and stuff. And I'm like, you don't do this. You don't want to get into a civil war. You don't want to you don't want to open that box, because once that starts, you know, back in 1865 or 1861, it was, yeah, there was clearly delineated lines there, north, south, that type of things. Now, it's going to be street to street, and there's no good that can come from it. And these people that say, "Oh well, I've got all these weapons, I'm going to be," all you are is a weapons cache for someone who is stronger and better able to either muster the number of people to take your stuff, or, you know, the fact that you've probably bragged on Facebook for the last 2 years about your, you know, this gun or that gun, you just targeted yourself.
It's a great thing in Lucifer's Hammer, which I'd mentioned before,
Yeah.
where this guy, so they know the asteroid is going to pass close to Earth. NASA sends a mission up, stuff like that. But then people get what they call hammer fever. They're like, what happens if it does? And so they start stocking up supplies and stuff like that. And this one guy, one of the main characters, he's a journalist, but he's like, and I don't want to say this in a way to piss anybody off, but he was in the 70s a Dan Rather style journalist, right? Lots of combat deployments out there with the troops, you know, had some shitty situations where he had to pick up a gun and fight to prevent them from being overrun, stuff like that. So this guy Harvey, he's doing all this stuff, and he's preparing, you know, so that he is ready. He is ready. The problem is that, you know, the day that the hammer comes, he's actually doing journalism things, and then it hits. And then he races home only to find that his neighbors were aware of the fact that he'd been stocking all this stuff up and broke into his house and took all of his stuff.
Yeah, I mean, and that's going to be what happens when if this happens, that we go into some kind of civil war. Like, you may be at the store, and then by the time you get back home, your neighbors, knowing that you've got, you know, Army Depot worth of weaponry, then they may not have. They want to take care of themselves. So,
right. Well, it's you know, we talked about divinity beforehand, right? There's that bit in the new scripture that says, when you pray in private. When you prep in private.
Prep in private. That's why, you know, I mean, it's a joke among libertarians, but when you talk about guns, you're like, oh, I lost them at the bottom of Lake, none your business.
Yeah.
So.
Fucking boating accident.
Yeah. So, but I just, until we get the economic situation, world economic situation now under control, I think that there's going to be a rise in political violence. I really do think that this Roe versus Wade decision is going to lead some kind of violence. Someone's going to lash out. And I don't know which side it's going to be. But I think that's going to definitely happen.
If it doesn't, I would be shocked. I'm sorry, but you cannot make a decision like that affects so many people after 2 years of telling us what to do. I don't know. If something doesn't happen, I'll be surprised. But we just had, I mean, the January 6 hearings, none of that is even resolved yet. We've still got hard feelings from that. We've got hard feelings from every election that's happened for the last, I don't know, like 50 years. It's coming to a boiling point. It has to.
I mean, the problem is that the stakes are so high that, you know, people really feel like it's a matter of life and death. And
when the state controls so much,
Right.
it is that high stakes, and we've actually really done a good job, or I would say good job, of gamifying politics. That I'm rooting for my team. My team is my identity, and you know, the worst thing that could ever happen to me is my team losing. Although, I mean, really, in the end, not much changes.
Well, we say not much changes, but here we are on the cusp of Dodd and a couple other big things that I said. I mean, I can recall saying many times, you know what, Roe's never going to be reversed, and it's never going to change. Right? I mean, I said it. I must have said that 100 times, and here we are. So the problem is, I mean, the problem is fundamentally one of authority, and I can't remember who wrote the book called "The God Called Democracy," but that's what's happened. Is that we have assembled democracy as a god and give it reverential powers, and the reality of it is that, as Jefferson said, a democracy, the government can be just as much a tyrant as a king.
Yeah.
And so, here we are, and our battle has to be against tyranny and not against, I mean, you can make an argument that, there's a lot of nice things about democracy, but if you had a king that just minded his own business and kept the peace, and that was it, that might be better than a tyrannical democracy.
Because I think we're getting to a point where I spoke on this a couple of weeks ago, that we are in a government by revenge.
Yeah.
That the Democrats have control now, but if they're ever in a point where the Republicans are looking at November with a chance that they're going to take control over the House and the Senate. They're looking at 2024, maybe getting Trump back in office. God, I hope not. But what can they do to cement some of this just social conservative lunacy that they've been foisting on us the last couple of months? And it's just to own the libs. We're gonna own these people. Like, no, that's slavery. If you want to own people, that's slavery.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's sad to see. Maybe this is kind of the inevitable start of the downfall.
Well, hopefully everybody has paid attention. Anybody that is willing to actually go out and vote and pay attention and have an informed vote, not just I'm voting red, I'm voting blue, blah, 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 whatever. If everybody nails the time to vote away from the parties, actually vote for the candidate, actually vote for a candidate you believe in. Like, pay attention to the public forums, pay attention to the debates, go to their pages and see a lot of times you can email and get answers back. It probably is not going to be from the candidate, but it's going to be one of their aides.
Yeah.
You can go and look at their voting record for that matter. I mean, there are ways to make an informed decision that a lot of people are not aware of. I don't know that I was really aware until this last few years that you could go and see exactly how they voted. No matter what crap they're saying, no matter what's on their stupid little sign, you can go and see how they voted and ask them about it. One of my favorite things right now is, of course, it's an election year and it's local. We're a small county, and I walk in and they're like, "Oh, hi, AJ," because they want really bad for the mouthy chick to have a good opinion of them. And it's happened to a couple of different campaign events. Now, I did end up in like some crazy cute Christian something and had to get my kid to call me. I was like, 119. What? I was like, "You've got to call me with an emergency." I was like, I got to go. But most of the time, going and actually talking to the candidate, talking to a judge, you're running for our general sessions judge. What do you think of jury nullification? And ask him in the middle of the room in front of everybody else. Because half the room's going to know what jury nullification is, half the room's not, and they're going to learn something. And that's huge. But ask them loud, ask them proud. That's the only way I can see us getting away from the political bullshit that we've got. I mean, that's it.
And jury nullification is going to be a very powerful tool, especially in the southern states that are passing these laws, that fully informed juries get them that information about jury nullification.
Oh, we have a public forum coming up with the DAs that are running, and I plan on submitting the question, and maybe it'll be asked: do you plan on prosecuting the doctors that perform an unauthorized procedure? Not, I'm not going to specify unauthorized procedure, period, across the board, because our bill in Tennessee brings up C-sections, it brings up DNCs.
Yeah.
I mean, this is actual medical care.
I think.
Are you going to prosecute the doctors?
Yeah, though I think you got to you have to be more specific. You say any medical procedure, right? There's a lot of I don't know if it's true in y'all's place, but certainly in Massachusetts and Rhode Island, there's a lot of really unauthorized cosmetic surgery that is like dangerous. Like they don't inject collagen, they inject like kitchen grease and stuff like
That's
that.
a whole other. I will have to specify, but I'll have to figure out the wording because in Tennessee, if you say abortion, you're automatically like, I don't know, a Satanist or something. All about killing babies, and it's just ridiculousness. Because a DNC after a miscarriage is called an abortion. But you can't say that because they hear that and it's all like, let's go Brandon again. It's the cult.
And DNC is also used for things like polycystic ovarian syndrome, where you get a buildup within the uterus that you have to have pulled out, or chance the cancer can start growing. And
endometriosis, heavy bleeding. If an egg implants anywhere else but the uterus, exactly where it's supposed to be, there are so many things in this bill. I was actually talking about this to a friend of mine, and he was like, oh, well, they're not talking. I was like, have you read the bill? He was like, no. I was like, then shut up. Go read the bill and we'll have this conversation. And you tell me. Tell me. I had 2 C-sections. Okay, both of them were emergency C-sections. I shouldn't have to call the government to ask permission to save my babies. That's stupid. I've also had a DNC. I had, and this is just, I don't know, like TMI, I guess. I had a miscarriage after my first child, about a year before I had my second child. Now, I wasn't far along, and I didn't even know I was pregnant. I knew something was wrong. So I called my OBGYN, and thankfully fit me in, checked me out. You're good. Didn't even need iron. I think I slept 12 hours and I was okay. A lot of time, that's not what happens. A lot of times these women retain that tissue and they need the procedure to save their lives.
Yep.
I cannot imagine having to call the doctor for an appendix that's gone bad, or a gallbladder that's gone bad. Are we really going to hesitate?
Yeah.
The bill goes so far to talk about contraceptive control and further steps for that. I can't see the reasoning behind it. So yeah, I'm going to have to figure out a way to say all of that in a really cute question that they'll read. So I might have to get y'all's help on that.
All right.
Yeah.
So yesterday, to no one's surprise, Elon Musk announced that he was pulling out of his deal to buy Twitter. I think this marks the first time that Elon has pulled out of anything.
Right. He just announced that he had those twins with a coworker.
Yeah. 9 children.
Yep.
9 that are claimed and whatnot.
Well, so this means right now, if you were going to split up his fortune, it would only mean $20 billion for each kid.
Oh,
Bless them. How will they survive?
Yep.
Jeez. Although he's been taking a fisting in the market, so he may not have quite as much.
I was fine until Dan did that.
Hey, no king shaming. All right.
No,
But yeah, I mean, I'm not surprised that I think the fact that the market's gone to crap. I don't think he was ever really serious about buying Twitter.
Mm-mm.
I think he was trying to cajole them into turning it into Truth Social. Although Truth Social is the same. I mean, they censor. I mean, try and load a January 6th video onto Truth Social, and it gets yeeted quite quickly. So,
Do you have an account on Truth Social?
no, I do not. I've been following several people on Twitter who have gone onto True Social and tried to upload the hearings, and their accounts get banned in no time.
Which is crazy, right? Because the whole point of it is that you're not supposed to get banned for anything.
No. You don't get banned if you are a sycophant for Donald Trump.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's all BS. Yeah, I never really thought he was serious about doing it. I think he was just trying to get Twitter to loosen up on some of its rules. Although I will say, after my last month and a half with Facebook, Twitter's rules are far better than Facebook's rules.
Did you get banned again?
Yeah, banned. I was out for 2 hours on my birthday. 2 hours.
Why?
So I get banned for the stupidest reason. So we all know Jess Mears.
I do know Jess.
Yes.
Talk
said-
to her today.
On July 1st, she said, "Hey, my boyfriend is Canadian. How do I make him feel welcome on his first Canada Day in the United States?" And I said, "Get into a hockey fight with him, pull a sweater over his head, and punch him in the face."
Yeah.
And
Wow.
off to the pokey. So I've decided at this point that my current account that I'm using, Valiant Valente, is going to end up becoming my main account. As soon as the ban is over, I'm going to put out a message on my old main account saying, "Hey, this is my new one. This one's going to be deactivated in a couple weeks," and then just be done with it, because they're watching that one way too closely now.
That's crazy.
Yeah,
Well, I hope
I
that
think
works.
once you get on the ban roller coaster on an account, it keeps coming. They're watching you 10 times harder. So
Interesting.
Twitter,
Yeah, I can say I have never been banned. Knock on wood.
yeah, Twitter now. What Twitter does is if you post anything that might trip the Facebook algorithm, they'll say, "Hey, we generally don't like posting this stuff. Do you want to continue to post or not?" It gives you the option. If you do something that does violate and somebody complains, what they do is say, "Hey, you've got to complain on this. We looked at it. We say it's not kosher. We're going to freeze your account until you take it down," which is what Jordan Peterson just had done with the Elliot Page tweet.
I'm so sorry.
I'm fine. All right, I'll take it down. That's fine. You don't get banned. You have to do some really egregious stuff, like fluffing for Nazis and
Try to overthrow the government.
yeah. I mean, that type of stuff, and then they're gonna ban you. And if you try and create alt accounts on Twitter, they will permanently ban you, as our current the current vice chair of the LNC found out.
Really? He's perma-banned?
Perma-banned from Twitter. Yeah, him.
He's about to be the real chair, right?
Who
When
knows?
Angela leaves on maternity,
Oh,
he's going to be the guy in charge.
yeah. Good
Well,
luck
y'all
with
have
that.
fun with that.
Yeah. Good luck with that.
Not my circus. Not my monkey.
Not
No,
my monkeys.
no, not at
Right.
all.
Not my Nazi fluffer.
Dude, don't get banned from StreamYard.
Oh my God, yeah, absolutely. So pullout game is, at least for Twitter, it is strong. For everything else, not so much for Elon Musk.
It really was just a stunt, right? Like this whole thing
Yeah.
was just. After Donald Trump actually won the presidency and we had a reality TV star in the White House, I don't believe anything anymore.
It's going to be interesting to see if there was did he make some money on Twitter stock during this time?
Well, I mean, that's the thing. The Twitter is
I'm sure he
now
might send
threatening to sue him over this.
Yeah.
So perhaps he was trying to gin up the stock for, profit or loss. Who knows? But the other big story this week, leading to lots of conspiracy theories, is the Georgia Guidestone was blown up this week. Have any of you been to the Georgia Guidestone?
I
I've
have
never
not.
been there, but I was reasonably familiar with them.
Yeah, so it was put up in like 1980. It was this kind of weird, small Stonehenge-ish looking thing, and on the sides of it had this kind of weird ranting about wanting
Instructions
to.
for repopulating the earth.
Yeah. I mean, it was really weird. Nobody knew who actually built it. It just went up, and all of a sudden it was there, and then nobody's ever come forward to claim it. And so this week it was blown up. It's always been a target by conservative groups because of the one world message and
Right.
repopulating the earth.
A lot of Democrats hated it too.
Yeah, I mean,
Because it involves, it says balance social responsibility and personal whatever.
yeah,
Only 500 million people or something along those lines.
Yeah, I mean but it didn't say kill to keep that
It said
limit.
repopulate up to this point, and then
Exactly. Well, and the interesting thing about it is that if we were to repopulate the planet now, we would probably have a lot more of that, right? I mean, America is declining in population. Most European countries, Japan, all declining in population because there are a large number of people like me that have no children, and so we balance out. The other groups. Dave, right? You have no children.
nope.
Right?
Cat.
You have 2 kids, AJ.
yes,
So the average number of kids between the 3 of us is 1/3. No, 2/3.
Sure.
Right. So less than 1 kid. So it's not a. I don't think 500 million. You'll see, but there wouldn't be a lot of people having enormous families to work the farms and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, at least from what I gathered with the Guidestones, it was kind of left ambiguous as to how we would get to the 500,000.
Right.
Whether it was, we had a big apocalyptic event that wiped out the planet to repopulate to 500,000, or will we just naturally get down there? I mean, that's a hell of a ask to go back down to 500,000 from 7.7 billion people. So,
Yeah.
But let's see. Greatest thing I saw this week. I'm going to share my screen again.
Baker Mayfield.
But Baker Mayfield. I'm glad he got out of Cleveland.
Me too.
They should do one of those. What commercial does he do? Like Progressive? Is that his?
It's where his house is the stadium.
Yeah, his house is the stadium, and they should do a new commercial with all this junk sitting outside the stadium.
Exactly. Right? Just handing the keys to Deshaun Watson and then saying, please don't sexually assault anybody while you're inside.
Yes. God. That's Cleveland is, Baker Mayfield led the Cleveland Browns to the only playoff win they've had in, almost 2 decades.
Yeah.
And he played hurt all of last year. He was just, held together with, duct tape and chewing gum last season. And to then go after Deshaun Watson, massage fiend. And then, the perfect thing is they've traded Baker. The NFL then hands down the suspension of Deshaun Watson. Now Cleveland has 0 quarterbacks, and right. Probably a lot of money on the books for him. So, yeah. Let's see. They're going. Yeah, I would too. You at least watching him in stuff. He seems to be a genuinely nice guy, and I think he's going to do well in Carolina. I think Carolina kind of sucks.
I hope so. I was disappointed that Sam Darnold did so poorly. I thought Sam Darnold was going to do well in Carolina, but the thing about Baker and Mayfield is he genuinely seems to be a nice guy.
Yeah.
And there's so few people of good character that I am. I wish him well. I wish him success.
Yeah.
And I hope Cleveland has a terrible year. And I'm sorry, Jim, but why would you sign Deshaun Watson?
Yeah.
Sorry, that's just crazy to me.
Not. I mean, you threw Baker Mayfield under the bus because
Totally.
he was injured, and that's you can't fault him for that.
Not even. No, it was just greed. I mean, it was greed, pure and simple. They wanted Deshaun Watson, who they think is a Super Bowl quarterback. But I mean, Baker Mayfield was Cleveland.
Yeah, and he never proved that in Houston that he was a Super Bowl level quarterback.
No, exactly. I mean, he put up some remarkable numbers, but he's a Super Bowl quarterback in the same way Michael Vick's is a Super Bowl quarterback.
The only remarkable number about Deshaun Watson is the 30 accusations against him. So anyway, let's end this on a lighter note. This is the best thing I've seen this week. This gentleman is actually two gentlemen are comedians, performance artists down in they're in Los Angeles, I believe. So this was at a city council meeting.
The next speaker is Chad Kroger and JT Park.
What up, Council? My name is Chad Kroger. This is my colleague, JT.
What up, Council?
I come to you deeply unstoked by the recent decision to overturn Roe v. Wade, and in doing so, restricting women's rights and setting back human/stoic progress. The sadness it has incurred in the women in my life has been massive. I realize I need to do something to show solidarity with the ladies, so from this moment forward, I will not be having sex. Huge sacrifice, I know. Protect women, then I won't do anything that could put them in a potentially impossible situation. JT will be joining me in this boning sabbatical.
It's like that story from Greece, Lizzie Strata.
Now that's funny.
Tap into your best selves and get this situation rectified. I would like to bone again one day, but again, I'm willing not to. Thank you.
Sorry, ladies.
All right, so that's the LA City Council. Stop sharing. Stop that. There we go. Yeah, that's this LA City Council. Great message. I'm glad they used humor on that one, but good message.
Boning sabbatical. That is my new favorite phrase.
Yeah, boning sabbatical is my new band name.
So it's funny you say that. I declared a dating moratorium before I met my wife. The last relationship that had broken up, I was just like, I'm doing it wrong. I am just doing it wrong. And so I did a 2-year dating moratorium, and I got better.
Say that again.
A dating moratorium is what I called it.
It technically was a boning sabbatical.
It was a boning sabbatical. Although, so I will say that there might have been a bone here or there that nobody was under any misconception that was a date, a romantic sort of thing. It's just, adults and stuff like that.
Well, there you go.
But no, I mean that I guess it's different. I guess the boning, honestly, I mean, in his respect, he could have romantic relationships just without the boning.
True. Yeah.
But that's pretty hard to do.
Yeah, because that's a thing that happens all the time.
Well, okay. Well, I guess you could. It's all right. Well,
there was one more piece of news that I forgot to mention this week. Boris Johnson was removed as prime minister. Although he's still in there until they pick a replacement. But yeah, Boris Johnson done in by himself.
Yeah, I mean, he'd been on the edge, like as soon as he got in. Right?
Well, I mean, he did. I mean, they won a massive majority. Their biggest one since the well, the biggest vote share since the first Thatcher win, and their largest vote percentage of MPs since the late 80s.
Right.
But his missteps, especially when it came to the COVID response
The
and
parties.
yeah, telling people that they couldn't go do anything, they locked down inside their houses, and he's having parties inside of his inside of 10 Downing Street, and
Right.
you know that flouting of the law and kind of that hubris and
Well, and then considering the fact that he did get COVID.
he got COVID a couple times, yeah.
So he got COVID. He got advanced medical intervention, but he,
well, the final straw was the final straw was when he named a known sexual predator to be in the cabinet. Right. So that's what finally drove a lot of his cabinet out, and that's what put pressure on him.
Yeah,
so that does work somewhere where we see somebody putting a child predator in a position or nominating them for a position and they lose their followers. That's neat.
It is. Well, one of the things about the British is that they don't say pedophile, they say pedophile.
Pedophile, yes.
And if you've ever watched the IT Crowd, there's a great episode where Jen gets a boyfriend and his name is Peter File. And so to prank him over the PA system and say, yes, is there a Peter File here? I'm Peter File. I'm Peter File. Very funny.
Oh my goodness.
All right. Well,
yeah.
I don't know. Boris Johnson was one of those guys who he added comedy to the world political situation, but it was time for him to go. It was in a weird place, though. They are sort of a one-party country now, right? The Labor's so bad, and they've been bad for so long. Jeremy Corbyn was ridiculously bad.
Oh yeah, he was awful. I mean, I think the guy that they've got now, Keir Starmer, is a lot better, and I think he will bring them back probably in the next election. Just when it happens. It depends on who. I think Boris Johnson has really done a rough job on the Tory party, and
I mean his main thing was to get them through Brexit. It'll be interesting to see who they replace him with, right? A kinder, gentler Tory party, but either way, it doesn't matter, right? Conservatives, Tories, and liberals are, even the conservatives in England are so far left of American Democrats that it's essentially the same.
Yeah. All right. Anyway. Well, anything else for the week? Good news stories, anything like that? What you got going on?
Probably won't be back in time for next Sunday's show. We'll see.
I'm not sure we're going to be doing a Sunday show because I'm going to be in Albuquerque and I won't have my laptop there to hook up.
Well, then I think we should just tell everybody that AJ and I are going to do the show without you. There you go. No, let's not do it then, because I'll be flying back. I'll be exhausted. Computer Best is exhausting.
I'll probably be doing some TikToks with Kara and that kind of fun stuff, sharing that to Facebook. So, but yeah. Anyway, thanks everyone for joining us. Oh, thank you, Craig. Appreciate you joining us. Thank you to my wife for joining us as well. That's an added bonus.
That's nice.
Yeah.
All right. Good night, everybody.
All right, well, have a great night, and we'll see you all in a couple weeks.